Yes. Go one slide forward. Okay, fine. Okay, so now that we've got that sorted out, so the company Our Next Energy is working on electrification and battery designs for electric vehicles, but electric vehicles are not a new subject. In fact, in the early 1900s here in the United States, the very first 50-mile road race was won by an electric car. The first automobile ever to cross 100 miles per hour was an electric car. And even President Roosevelt in 1902 was chauffeured in an electric car as he was visiting Connecticut. In the 1910s, the first home charging systems were generated by a new company at the time, General Electric, which was actually founded out of Edison's work on batteries and electricity and even lighting. The first 200-mile demonstration of an electric car was also in the 1910s, and there was a road trip that Thomas Edison partook in that did 1,000 miles by recharging at different stations. And really the first commercial fleets of trucks were electric. The American Express company had an announcement in a local paper of 182 electric trucks in their fleet. And their buyer said that about the choice of technology, we don't think the explosion engine and gasoline have proven themselves, and gasoline also doesn't look very safe. And so in the early 1900s, really electric vehicles had taken root as being 38% of the market of transportation. And then the question might be in your mind, what happened? Why did not electric cars start from the very birth to take off? And I'm going to draw on two clear inspirations that came through Khilafat and then this Quranic verse that are shaping the company's future. The first is around mass adoption. Getting a market to adopt a technology is sometimes not well understood as what the phases are. There's a very clear book that defines market development where Geoffrey Moore talks about the first products to ever be introduced will get a small market, but because people like innovation and they'll be drawn to new technology. The early adopters will see the technology moving in a direction that it's useful, but the mass market doesn't come until you overcome appealing to the products that serve the majority of the market. And electric vehicles in the early days did not have the range and cost to really appeal to the majority of the market. So in the 1920s, they actually fell off, and gasoline vehicles that were 1/7 the price took root. And that's where the market and the gasoline vehicles took off. Right now, we're facing another rise in electric vehicle interest, but I would argue that the mass market is still possibly elusive unless we're developing the technologies that will help us get there. In 2008 or 7, rather, I had the opportunity to present an electric car to Khalifa Masih in Fazl Masjid, London. And in that discussion, the very clear idea that he gave me is to only work on technologies that will be able to appeal to the mass market. And so as we started developing the technology roadmap for this company, we decided to go after doubling of the range of electric vehicles as our first idea. And actually at the time, electric cars have been around 300 miles of range. Many people would argue that that's enough. Doubling the range of a 300-mile electric car was really a new idea. And as I analyzed that, the market itself is going to like electric cars, but the truck and SUV market, larger vehicles, using vehicles in the wintertime, dealing with mountains, dealing with high speeds, all of those conditions are going to result in range being the clear problem that people are going to hesitate on. You'll get maybe 25% of the market, but not the full market until we fully double the range of an electric car. The second problem we had started observing before I founded the company is around safety. You've heard about battery electric vehicles having fires, and that being a problem for the consumer to trust the vehicles that are out there. There have been 5 NHTSA recalls that have affected electric cars. So we decided to avoid chemistries that could actually cause a thermal runaway or a safety problem. And then developing a US and North American supply chain was our third goal. The technology that we founded the company around to be able to double the range of an electric car actually goes right back to that Quranic verse that in everything we created bears. And in that idea, I started thinking, I woke up actually one morning literally with an inspiration. And I remember in my Fajr namaz thanking Allah because I realized this idea had not been tried and could actually be profoundly valuable in the pursuit of doubling the range of an electric car. And that was simply to divide an electric car's behavior and requirements into two segments. One that I use every day, which is within 150 miles. The second that I use occasionally that would add another 450 miles. And in dividing the battery technology into two completely distinct requirements, we unlocked the ability to develop a second chemistry, which only did one thing really well, range, did not need a lot of lifetime, didn't need a lot of power. And actually establishing the Gemini, or two of these batteries working together, we created a company that has now unlocked a roadmap potential that the first battery can exist and just get very mature in production, quality, and cost. And it can use chemistries that are iron-based, avoiding nickel and cobalt, avoiding fires. The second chemistry can evolve. And if you look at the roadmap of chemistry development, where I saw generation 1 and generation 2, there's actually a class of chemistries that are now being developed that get more than one electron out of every ionic transfer, where energy density in that dotted area will take an electric car even past 600 miles, will be up to the 1,000 to 1,500 miles equivalent capability. And what we'll do then is start driving the cost of these technologies down. We'll start enabling flight, we'll enable shipping. So as the technology now evolves into multi-electron, and as we grow in this roadmap, we have a design for these dual batteries where the first battery can stay the same, the second battery can keep evolving, where the power is 1/7 the normal batteries, the cycle life requirements 1/10. And in that, we unlocked a lot of research in academic settings. Now that we're initiating grants and working with universities to invent chemistries for automotive that have never really been in the past perceived as viable because they didn't have the power or the cycle life durability. And so one has created a roadmap now for a battery technology to evolve. And what that does is, if you look at now the market where all of these gray dots represent the nickel cobalt chemistries, Our Next Energy is now the first to introduce an iron-based battery that matches and exceeds the range of today's electric cars, around 350 miles of range, but then also in a class by itself and offering a 600-mile electric car, which we are demonstrating this year. We've also announced now factories that are starting to produce the first Aries batteries in March of this year, and Gemini will go into production in 2026. So as we look at this company's evolution, the final point I'll make to you is, through the blessings of Jamaat and prayers of our Khalifa, this company is accelerating quite well. One thing that we did is we decided to make the company in the mold of Wasiyat, that it would give 10% of its earnings into benefiting mankind. And as we made those clear ideas, we wanted a company that would glorify the unity of Allah, serve mankind, think about the matching of pairs, as I didn't really think about when I wrote that letter to Hazur, that the core technology would actually be birthed as two batteries working together as pairs, that actually is foundationally where our intellectual property is. We're now, by the grace of Allah, and I only say this for the purpose of inspiring the other entrepreneurs in the audience, that with these sort of simple ideas and writing Hazur often, our company in 2.5 years is now, by the grace of Allah, worth just a little more than 1 billion. And we're accelerating manufacturing in the US market. I couldn't have done this, obviously, in any normal worldly way. So I always come back to, it's through the humility of understanding that we are just vehicles to propel the technology evolutions and to discover. And if we look at ourselves as humble servants, and that we're stewards of what Allah's graces are, that we can carry these things forward quite quickly and with success, inshallah. So Jazakallah for your time, and pray for all of you as well.